how we actually manage the organization, right? By emphasizing planning, right? Organizing, leading, and controlling processes, right? Covering various aspects uh, of the organization, right? From human resource to finance to marketing to operations to internal customers, employees, right? Students like all of you, or even your parents, the industries, right? Governments. So we really have to manage the organization comprehensively and really have to know the various performance criteria and really measure from time to time to see whether we really achieve the targets or not. So that's why he used to advise us that things get measured, get done. We have to measure where we stand, how we perform from time to time, yeah, and control accordingly, right? Then we will be able to achieve the targets set or even surpass the targets that we want to achieve, right? So same goes to channels management. We really have to understand the performance of this particular marketing channel. So this channels management, remember, covering various aspects, uh, especially this is a social system, right? These social systems consist of many individuals, right? Groups of individuals with the objective of distributing the goods and services from one point to the other point, so that all these flows can be effectively and efficiently implemented or done towards always achieving the objectives of right time, right volume, right quality, right cost, right service levels, so that our targeted customers are always very satisfied. So you always have to understand the performance or the situations before the situations get worse, out of control, right? Yeah. So we may not manage when there are problems there, but we should be able to discern the challenges ahead or problems most likely will crop up. So you have to continuously understand and evaluate the members' performance and also the behaviors, the perceptions, their expectations, the challenges that they face, and so on. Right? So don't wait until there is a problem or there are problems already, then you measure or to overcome. We should be able to be proactive, right? Preemptive in our performance evaluation of the channel members or the participants in this entire social system. And you find that evaluating member performance is crucial in channels management, right? The importance of channel member performance equals that of employee evaluations within the firm, right? This Rosenbloom reminds us, right? Except the channel member, this channel manager works with the individual firms rather than with the individual employees, right? As we know, this marketing channel is a external contextual organization, right? You have these employees inside our organizations and also external to our organization, right? The wholesalers, the retailers, the agents, right? The logistical, the external facilitating agents, right? So we have to work with all these channel members and facilitating agents external to our organization, right? Though, of course, some of the organizations could be legally belonging to us, but socially you can see that they are other individuals or groups of individuals whom we really have to understand and manage accordingly so that these distribution tasks can be performed effectively and the objectives can be achieved, right? So that these targeted customers can be very satisfied. Of course, the setting is inter-organization rather than intra-organization in this case. They are outside our organizations, right? To what extent we will be very stringent, or the scope of evaluating, the frequency of evaluating depends on the degree of, let's say, our control over these channel members. If you find that some of the channel managers or the business development managers or manufacturers, service providers can be very strict, can be very, how to say, prudent in managing the channel members. Some of them may be not that strict, maybe just quite loosely in terms of their monitoring process. So that depends on the manufacturers or the service providers or the business development managers, the individuals or the organization itself, right? Okay. Relative importance of the channel members, right? If the channel members are very important, I'm sure you will tend to be very, how to say, very prudent, very careful, right? You will really like to know their performance, because if they don't perform well, then your performance will be really affected. And also the nature of the product, the number of the channel members. All these will affect the scope of this evaluation, and also how many times that you are going to evaluate them, the frequency. So firstly, the degree of control. To what extent you as the manufacturer or the business development manager or the channel manager we like to control all these channel members. Control that a producer, manufacturer, or franchisor has over the members based on, of course, strong contractual agreements, right? If especially it is an franchisee system, right? So the channel manager can demand a great deal of information on the members' operations. Take, for instance, a franchising system, right? You have many franchisees across, let's say, Sarawak, right? Let's say that you are the franchisor for a food chain, for instance, a fast food chain. So, of course, you really would like to know all how these franchisees across Sarawak are performing in terms of, let's say, the operations, how they actually, cook, let's say, the particular food or dishes, right? And also the employees, are they really complying with the procedures, right? The SOPs in terms of, let's say, cooking or serving and inventory management and logistics, and even the physical appearance of, let's say, your restaurant. So there are, of course, rules and regulations already stated in the franchisee agreement that they have to follow. And you as the franchisor, you really have to monitor them, right? And control. If not, your brain will be affected, right? Because all the practices, the control, the quality, they affect you, directly affect your brand name, right? Imagine if you are the business development manager of, let's say, a fast food chain, let's say McDonald's or KFC or Chicago 7 or any other fast food chain. You don't want your franchisees not following your SOPs, right? You don't want, let's say, your dishes are not the same, right, across the entire franchisee system, right? You don't want, let's say, your fast food, let's say, center in Kuching different from, let's say, the same fast food, right, in, let's say, Cebu or Kapit or Bintulu or Miri or Sriaman and so on, right? We want them to be of the same quality, right? Because it's carrying your brand name. So you must be very strict in terms of this performance evaluation. So this manufacturer, let's say, lacks strong market acceptance for its products and strong channel control based on contractual commitments, right? And of course, these manufacturers can exert legal control over channel members if there is the case, right? So to what extent you manage the performance, measure the performance, depends on the degree of the control that you want to exert on the channel members. And secondly, if the members are important, you tend to be emphasizing the performance evaluation. Evaluation of channel members is more comprehensive for manufacturers or service providers who sell all of their outputs through intermediaries than for the manufacturers or the service providers who rely less on intermediaries, right? Of course, like now a lot of suppliers or manufacturers, service providers are doing things through e-commerce, right? Through online, also through social media. And of course, you can see that this intermediation, they don't use intermediaries, they go direct, right? Go direct, right? Promoting, putting up their promotional activities or their tell the customers their products, online. Can see people put in Facebook, right? Yeah, live video presentations to showcase their products, and people can just place the orders on the spot, and you can see that within minutes, finished, right? The products sold online, right? And place the orders, also make the payment online, right? Through many kinds of these online payment mechanisms, right? So in Sarawak, we easily place or pay, right? Using Sarawak Pay, for instance, using Boost, for instance, right? Many ways of paying online, right? So you can see that you may not be using intermediaries, right? It's direct marketing, right? It's really online. So if there is a case, you can see you don't really need to manage the intermediaries, right? Yeah, you have to really manage yourself only you and the customers, right? And of course, the online mechanism. Because the firm's success in the market is directly depending on the channel members' performance. If you have the intermediaries, and some of the members are very important members, yeah, they may be contributing, let's say, 20%, 30% of your business volume, right? Your distribution, right, depends on that particular channel member or those few channel members. So you really have to make sure that, right, yeah, that they are performing very well. They are really doing their distribution task very well. And of course, the nature of the product, if it is a very complex product, right? The more complex the product, the broader the scope of the evaluation will be, right? For products of high unit value, the gain or the loss of a single order is very important to the manufacturer or the service provider. So we have to really ensure that that particular product or that particular channel member is performing very well. Okay, if not, our profitability will be affected, the customer satisfaction will be affected, right? And we will lose our market share. The number of channel members is another consideration. Manufacturers who use intensive this distribution, then the channel member evaluation may be cursory, right? Yeah, not that comprehensive. It can be just sometimes maybe just using selectively, right, the performance evaluation, and can be just based on as and when needed, right? The manufacturers who use highly selective distribution, then the channel members evaluation is has to be very comprehensive, right? Yeah, you only have a few, let's say, channel members distributing your goods in that particular locality, and you have to be very comprehensive, really understanding in detail the various aspects of the performance criteria. Really have to understand the channel members' performance. So this evaluation is quite different from monitoring. This performance evaluation is overall performance reviews, right? That give management a complete and objective analysis of each distributor's operations. So we emphasize this more holistic kind of assessment on that particular channel member. compared to this monitoring, more to day-to-day monitoring appraisals that assist management in maintaining current operating control of the distributors' efforts. So more to the operational aspect and the technical aspects of that particular distributional arm of yours, and covering the various distribution tasks, right? So performance evaluation will be technical, also included, the non-technical and the managerial aspects also included, including the attitudinal assessment of the channel members as well, right? So it will be more strategic in a way, right? To ensure that the distribution objectives are achieved. Whereas monitoring can be more operational and technical, and more to day-to-day kind of evaluation. So if we really serious about this performance evaluation to really keep track and really monitor the performance of the channel member, we really have to have a good performance evaluation mechanism, right? And we need to have this criteria to be developed, and we need to really regularly monitor, measure the performance, and with that we can if you have problems, we can really come up with the corrective actions in time before the situations get out of hand, right? So we can have this performance audit, right? Firstly, of course, we must have the criteria. In order to measure the performance, right? We must have the indicators, right? The criteria on what, right? What are the things that we want to know? What are the areas of performance that we would like to measure? And how do we measure, right? There must be performance indicators, right? So we have the criteria like the sales performance, like the inventory maintenance of the channel member, right? Like the selling capabilities, to what extent they are able to sell our product, right? Yeah. And also the attitudes of the channel members is very important, right? Yeah, their perceptions, their expectations, their behaviors, day-to-day behaviors, right? So we really have to understand from time to time. Their competition faced by the channel members, right? We also have to understand, right? Different, let's say, geographical areas, different members all over, let's say, Sarawak, they may be facing different competitive environments that we really have to understand. Okay, yeah. So we have to talk to them, could be, and we also have to understand the external environment that they are facing. And could be the general growth prospects of the channel members, including also the strategic, this succession plan, right? We have to understand also whether our channel members are having this good growth prospect or not, and also can sustain or not. How are their future, right? So do they have these people, let's say, continuing the business, right? If your channel members are led by, let's say, elderly individuals already, some of them can be already 70 years already, right? Or 60 years already. So are they having, let's say, the succession plan? Are their children or the employees are really able to succeed, right? Yeah, to continue the business, right? So that will affect your performance as well, right, in this marketing channel. So sales performance, let's say, is a very important indicator, right? We want to make sure that the channel member can really achieve the sales targets, right? They can really perform the selling activities. So these criteria channel managers should use to evaluate the sales data from time to time, right? Compared to other, let's say, channel members, compared to the previous, let's say, sales targets and so on, right? And also the inventory maintenance must be well managed, let's say, in terms of the level of channel members inventory, the share of floor space devoted to inventory. Even you have to go down to the site, and you really have to go to the site and visit, you know, the inventory management facility, the warehousing facilities, the store management, and so on. You have to look at the physical infrastructure there and the facilities there by visiting the sites, go and see on your own. Of course, now you have to go through this virtual way of really see the situation there through, let's say, video visit, right? Online video, right? And of course, specifically the chef, the floor space, the breakdown by particular products, how is it? You must have the database system, inventory management system to update, right? The latest information. Condition of the inventory and the inventory facility, amount of all stock, adequacy of channel members, inventory control, and so on. Most likely, you will have the latest information system databases linked to your organization to know the latest status of their inventory, right? So as to reduce the cost and also the waste could be, And the selling capabilities, manufacturer who obtain sales records for channel members, salespeople should really examine the number of salespeople for that particular channel member, right? Assigned to different product lines, salesperson interest in manufacturer's product. Yeah, so that is also very important. Their attitudes towards your product. The salespeople, are they really committed and very hardworking, very reliable and hardworking or not in covering the various key accounts of yours? Are they really doing very well in terms of their selling activities and the management of the sales force? Their technical knowledge, whether they are competent or not of channel members, salespeople, are they really competent or not? And of course, their attitudes, right? Like I said just now, right? Though it is not usually evaluated, but a lot of manufacturers or service providers also they use a lot of these day-to-day observations and experiences with the individuals or the organizations to really understand their attitudes. They may not be using, for instance, a questionnaire survey, but when they are talking to you, they're actually assessing your attitude, right? Like me, when I'm talking to you, I'm also assessing your attitude, right? Towards assignment, towards this course, right? Towards doing things in doing various, let's say, activities and so on, and participations, right? So from time to time, you really have to understand their attitudes, the way they think of us, their expectations, their behaviors from time to time, their commitment towards us. Yeah. So either formally assess or informally assess, you have to know the attitude. And of course, the competition, as we have heard just now, the competition from other intermediaries, competition from other product lines carried by the manufacturers on channel members, right? And the general growth prospects of the channel members, their past performance, overall performance, expansion or improvement of the organization, their growth prospects in terms of the level of growth and qualification in personnel, management, age, health, succession plan, adaptivity, right? Member estimates of its on medium and long-term range outlooks, right? All this we have to assess, right? Some of the channel members may be not really performing well, may not be able to perform well in 5 years to come. You can see, the prospect in the particular market or their succession plan is not really there. A lot of, let's say, if it is a family business kind of enterprises, you can see that the children are not willing to continue the parents' business, right? So from there, you can see, that particular channel member may not be able to perform well if this were to go on, right? Nobody is continuing the father's business, for instance, right? Yeah. So we have to apply this performance criteria. You can use various approaches in the performance evaluation. Some people are using this separate performance evaluation system. And you may be using multiple criteria combined informally kind of system. Or the third one is you can use a multiple criteria combined formally to arrive at a quantitative index of overall performance. So there are three approaches that you can resort to and see which one is the appropriate one in order to evaluate the channel member performance. Okay, so the first one, let's say, is separate performance evaluation. So this is commonly used for a lot of small businesses, right? Yeah, especially, and where the performance evaluation is separately done for various individual performance. This channel member commonly used when the number of channel members is very large, and when criteria are limited to no more than sales performance, inventory maintenance, and possible selling capabilities. So could be just 3 or 4 performance criteria, and you have so many, right, members to evaluate. So you will separately just evaluate for the members that you would like to know the performance about, right? So it's separately done for the individual members, right? You don't actually consolidate or combine them to come up with, let's say, a overall performance for that particular individual member. Or you can have this multiple criteria combined, but informally, right? Operational performance measures, of course, you obtain the performance information. And then you have this managerial judgment used to combine the performance measures. You have various measures, and then you use your own judgment to evaluate, and maybe through meetings, and then you have a conclusion on the overall performance of the members, right? And it could be involving this qualitative judgment made about the channel member performance. So it can be quite subjective, though you have the performance indicators, but you don't combine them formally using, let's say, an objective measuring system, right? So we have this third one, right? The multiple criteria combined formally approach, whereby the channel managers, we actually have this criteria and have the weight for each and every criteria, how important it is. So you assign weight, the relative importance of each and every one of the criteria. And then each member evaluated is rated on each of the criteria. And a score on each criterion multiplied by the weight for that criterion. So if, for instance, if you have 5 criteria, so every criteria has relative importance. And then you measure every criteria for that particular member. Later on, you have this weighted score for every criteria, right? Weighted score means the actual score times the weight for that particular criteria, right? And after that, overall, you combine all of the criteria to come up with, let's say, an overall index score for that particular channel member. So this is what we call multiple criteria combined formally, right? With a weighted score of all the criteria and then combine into an index, performance index. All right, let me show you an example. For instance, you as a business development manager, you would like to measure the performance of the channel member, let's say the wholesaler. So in terms of this performance criteria, already, let's say, maybe you determine this, of course, together with the wholesalers. So they have to agree that these are the performance indicators, and then all of us are mutually on this performance indicator. And then they agree that these are the indicators that you can use or we can use to assess them, right? So everybody agrees that this is the performance indicators, right? So sales, the attitude, the profitability, the capability, the succession, right? And how important are all these indicators? For instance, sales is important, right? It's very important actually. And let's say it contributes 20% in terms of 0.2, right? Across, let's say, a total of 1, right? We assign, let's say, the weight of 0.2, right? 20%. And attitude, let's say, contributes 25%, right, of the overall importance of the performance. And profitability, of course, the most important, right? Every channel member has to be profitable, right? Yeah, 30%, let's say. And then the capability is 15%. And succession is, let's say, 10% to ensure the sustainability of the channel member. So then you will assess the performance, right? So the actual performance, let's say using a score of 1 to 10, right? The sales performance, let's say for the wholesaler, right? You as a channel manager together with your team, right? You may be going down or looking at the various records and the performance activities and so on, right? Or sometimes you really have to go and assess them, right? The sales performance. So through various activities of assessment or your research on them, the sales performance of the, let's say, particular wholesaler is 8 in terms of sales, right, out of 10. So that is performing very well, right? And attitude, let's say a score of 7 out of 10. Profitability, very good, giving, let's say, a score of 9 out of 10, right? And capability is 7, but the succession plan is not doing well, getting a score of, let's say, 3 only out of 10. So with this actual score on that particular channel member, you can see that you now can come up with a weighted score for each and every of the criteria here. So 0.2 times 8, you have a weighted score of sales 1.6, let's say, and in this case, attitude, this 0.2 times 7, a score of 1.7, and so forth, right? And after that, you can total up the weighted score of all these criteria, right? You have 5 scores here. So you have a score of 7.4 out of 10. So if you want to, let's say, convert to, let's say, percentage, right? So you have, let's say, 74.0%, right? Out of, let's say, 100. So maybe, let's say, you want to call it the performance index in this case is 74%, right? So 7.4 divided by total score of 10 times 100%, right? You have this 74%. So you as a channel manager, business development manager, you want to assess the performance really objectively using this multiple criteria combined formally approach. Also can, you can come up with the criteria, assign the weights, right? For every criteria, later on carry out the assessment, and then compute the overall score for that particular member. So if you have so many channel members, let's say you have, let's say, 20 wholesalers across the country, so you have to do for every wholesaler, and then later on you can see, the performance at each and every channel member, right? And if you want to reward them, you can see you have this index for you to give which one is the best wholesaler, right? So if you have, let's say, 1,000 retailers across the nation, so you can also have this kind of index approach, right? So you can see which one is performing very well, which areas you need them to improve, and so on. So you can have this more objective way of assessment, and you can do that regularly, right? You may do that, let's say, quarterly, for instance, right? And then towards the end of the year, you can see overall which one is the best, then you can reward them, right? Or which areas they need to improve.